So Professor Mystic talked about the interpretation of statutes. And so in the next couple of videos, including this one, I want to talk to you about how we think about interpreting statutes once you have some language in front of you. What are the interpretive mechanisms that you'll use? He's absolutely right. You look at the dictionary, you look at the legislative history, but there's something unique about criminal statutes. And first and foremost with criminal statutes, we want to look at the fact that there are essentially two different types of criminal statutes. Those that are derived from the common law and those that are derived from the model penal code. You don't know what those terms are yet. You don't need to know yet what they are, but you'll come to learn about them in various different crimes that we look at. The common law, you've probably heard something about, and those were the definitions that judges had. They still are definitions that judges had, but when we're talking about something like criminal law or constitutional law, we mean the definition that judges had at the time that the United States declared its independence from Great Britain. And those definitions of crime that existed that judges had created up until that point were then later codified into criminal statutes that we'll be looking at today. Those sets of statutes that reflect the common law have one perspective, and that perspective tends to punish harm more than it punishes evil intent. Don't worry too much about what that looks like on the ground yet. We'll talk about that when we get to it. Then in the 1960s, there came to be a new perspective on how we punish. And that was a perspective of a group of basically law professors in the 1960s who, through the American Law Institute, drafted something called the Model Penal Code. The Model Penal Code had as one of its primary motivating animuses the idea that we should punish evil intent, evil desire, and the effort to bring about harm as much as, or almost as much as, we punish harm itself. The harm itself wasn't what we were worried about. It was evil actors and evil acts. Whereas the common law had a perspective that it was the harms that were done to society that were really the gravamen of the criminal law. So when we're looking at a criminal statute, one of the ways we'll go about interpreting this statute is to ask, what is the origin of the language? And if the language comes from the Model Penal Code, we know that the people who chose that language, namely not just the drafters, but the legislature that adopted it and enacted it, that those folks were wanting to take the approach that is associated with the Model Penal Code, the one that looks with every bit as much concern with the evil thoughts and the evil actions of a criminal actor as with the harm. If the language comes from the common law, what we'll find is that that perspective is more about concerns about the harm that the evil actor has done to society. And we'll see different examples of this, but this is just an intro to one of the ways to think about how to interpret statutory language.